The Dharma, incomparably profound and exquisite, is rarely met with even in hundreds of thousands of millions of kalpas. We now can see it, hear it, accept and hold it. May we realize the true mind of the Tathagata. Today is the seventh and most powerful day of this second in a row 7-day sesshin here in November 2021 at Mountain Gate in Oaxaca, New Mexico. And why is it the most powerful day? Because every single day that we have applied our minds deeply, we have gone, whether we realize it or not, deeper and deeper and deeper. The first sesshin I ever sat was a 4-day in Rochester, New York, 1975. And I had commuted from where I was living in Istanbul at the time to Rochester for the sesshin. I was terrified. I wasn't sure I could even manage the schedule. And to be honest, it was very, very difficult. The schedule was not as much of a problem as I thought it was, but my mind was really something to deal with. And it was a struggle every single day of the sesshin. It ended, and the next morning, as is typical at the Rochester Zen Center, it was a Sunday morning, and it was, the Zendo was open to anyone in the community, the Zen community. And I went down early and I sat without realizing it in profound peace for 2 hours without moving. It was in direct contrast to how the sesshin had been for me. But the fact that I had struggled with mind states and throughout the week and not just given away had made that 2 hours possible. Every single day that we have sat deeply in sesshin has added to the previous day's depth. And of course, sesshin and practice in general is kind of ups and downs. But as you get more and more seasoned, it's less ups and less downs and more pretty much straightforward, moving deeper. The challenge is that, particularly on the 7th day, we might kind of decide to coast. And that's a very, very sad decision if you make it, because you're in essence diminishing all the work you've done and significantly diminishing it. It basically, you've turned yourself into a 6-day sesshin attendee rather than a 7-day sesshin. And it will make a difference ongoing. No matter what it feels like, walk right into and embrace that experience physically. Forget the story. Forget the feeling of resistance because you don't like whatever the mind state you're in. Just go into the bodily experience of that mind state and explore it wordlessly. Tune in, become one with it, and you will be surprised. If you tune in fully, you will suddenly drop into a much deeper level of openness, peace, curiosity. The practice will continue to deepen further. The thing is, we are more or less have grown up learning to, or choosing to, I don't know if we learned to do it, we're trying to avoid pain and suffering. And so we try to shut down any negative mind states, any uncomfortable mind states, and distract ourselves with many different kinds of distractions. I don't need to list them. You all know what they might be. And so that's part of what we're working to let go of. It's rather amazing, the landscape, the weather, the internal experience changing moment to moment in our humanity. And when we explore it without trying to do something to it, it is amazing what can happen. This really is the fundamental nature of our practice, is to explore deeply the human experience and reach within that human experience for what is the deepest truth, for that original face before our parents were born, for that moo, for the sound of one hand. Persist and you will open to it, and it will be worth the struggle. I'd like to continue again with some words from Living Buddha, Living Zen by Lex Hixon. As you know from previous Teishos, this is actually a koan text, Transmission of the Lamp. But I'm not going to take these up as koans right now. How can one sew if the needle remains shut in the case? This is the transmission 34 from Huineng, the sixth patriarch, to Qing Yuan. The destined successor earnestly approaches the sixth Chinese Buddhist ancestor. How can one avoid becoming stuck in some stage of spiritual development? How can one avoid becoming stuck in some stage of spiritual development? This is a very important question, because actually in the Theravadan system, there are stages spelled out. In Zen, no. And you will hear something more about this. What stage have you attained? Fierce, the fiery sage responds like lightning. With equal swiftness, the mature practitioner replies, I've not even begun to consider the Four Noble Truths. The awakened one now removes the final veil from the new living Buddha. What stage will you ultimately reach? His innate enlightenment now completely revealed, the successor laughs and responds, if I never begin, not even at the beginning stages, how can I end at any stage? What stages can there be? The old sage confirmed the transmission of light with steady gaze. To weigh and measure our practice is a distracting undertaking, really. And what it is pointing to in this koan actually is that which is beyond stages, beyond winning and losing, beyond the Four Noble Truths. What is that is beyond? It's called your original face. It's called Mu. And there are many other names for it, but that's not what it really is. And what each of us is working towards doing, because there's some inner urgency to it. For most of us, it's taken place since childhood. I'm going to sneeze. Maybe not. And that's what keeps us sitting in the Zendo, even when our legs hurt, our knees hurt, our back hurts. We get bored, we get frustrated. We want to get out of here as fast as we can. Although if you're deeply committed to Zen practice, those things don't matter. You'll sit without regard to pain. Getting out of here won't really come up. It's the mind state of a less seasoned practitioner. What we can realize is beyond concept and yet immensely freeing in ways that you cannot imagine. It knocks down the bars of the self-created cage. And interestingly enough, when we let go sufficiently, there's an inner sense that takes over and responds seamlessly and accurately and clearly and compassionately to whatever comes up for us, whatever encounter we have, whatever situation we need to deal with. There is this inner sense, and it is accurate, far more accurate than anything we can come up with from our heads. Beyond that, this freedom is phenomenal. The freedom to be completely without investment, even if somebody is terribly unpleasant to you, even if something really negative happens to you, you're accused of a crime. No matter what happens, when we have reached such a state as the exemplars we know about, Flora Courtois, Jacques Lezeran, Shiro Munan, and countless other people, all the way from the Buddha onward. And I'm sure there were previous people before the Buddha who had experienced this profound letting go of self-created imprisonment and were able to function freely despite all challenges. There was a monk in ancient China who was deeply realized and began to become famous. And word reached the emperor of this man. And so he ordered the monk to come and teach the royal entourage. And the monk refused because he knew that those people in the royal castle were not particularly interested in liberation. They were interested in whatever stars they can put in the crowns by having a monk in residence. And furthermore, he would be abandoning his own students who were deeply committed to practice if he went. So he refused. And the word came back that his refusal meant death. So he asked for an extra week before he would present himself to be executed so that he could leave his teachings for his students. And after that week of carefully compiling what was necessary, what is essential for practice, and passing it on, he went and he presented himself. And the traditional execution manner, which was still common in the 1900s in China, was to have your head cut off. There are actually photographs of executed prisoners, minus their heads. And so he went, and as he was bowing down to receive the cut, he said, he spoke a poem, and I don't remember it word for word, but basically, in essence, that the slice through his neck would be no different from the spring wind. And there was more to it than that. There was an expression of awakened mind as part of that. One of these days, I'll try to look it up and present it. But he was so free that even he could be executed without a flicker of pain and suffering, resentment, fear. This is what each one of us can reach through this practice. It's built into every single human being, every single being, really. is possessed of this Buddha nature. Who we think we are is just a superficial application. And of course, it helps with social intercourse. Sometimes it hinders pretty seriously, actually. These days, politicians who voted in certain directions are getting death threats. It's quite amazing, the intensity of rage and violence that is being perpetrated these days. And that's another thing that we can become free of as well. You remember the story of I think it was during the Onin Wars in Japan, and one person of an opposing army had taken refuge in a particular monastery. And so the other army came in and required all the monks and the abbot to be upstairs in the Sanmon, the triple gate. And then they set fire to it. And one monk cries out to the abbot, "We're going to die. We're going to burn." And the abbot said, "When truly awakened, even fire is peaceful ease." And those monks in Vietnam that immolated themselves had also reached a point of let go, to the point where they could simply sit and burn to a crisp without flinching. Being burnt is hugely painful. What did these people know that allowed them to be so free? It is something that we can open to as well. And as the days leading up to this have proven, we have gotten deeper and deeper and deeper. There's another thing that needs to be said, and that is that practice is a process. In the old days, and even now, it's getting Kensho is highly advertised and misunderstood as well. Kensho is seeing into the true nature of reality, and there are depths to see into and deeper depths that one can reach, and deeper even depths. And this is why ongoing practice is essential, including and especially practice following Kensho, leading up to hopefully further Kensho experiences, as they did for Hakuin, who had 19 major Kensho experiences and countless minor ones. He is someone to emulate, deeply committed to practice, persevering at all odds. When he inherited the little local temple that had been basically a family temple for some time, family temple meaning his family had supported it, and an uncle had been an abbot there. And it is quite a wonderful little temple. I have sat there multiple times. The peace and the profound depth of, it's impossible to describe. In that zendo, it was as if Hakuin himself was still sitting there. And in a certain way he was, because instead of the altar, the typical founder's hall found in Japanese temples and Japanese Zen temples was actually up behind where the altar would have been. So instead of the altar, there are these tall steps, which are also typical of Japanese structures. And up And then there is a platform and an altar table. And sitting behind the altar table is a life-size statue of Hakuin, peering piercingly at you, as if to say, what is it? What is it? And it is his lineage that is the only remaining lineage in Rinzai, in Japan. The others have all died out. His lineage was so powerful and so deeply realized that it has maintained to the current day. It is in danger of dying, certainly in Japan, but Mitra-roshi is working hard to make sure that doesn't happen. Tangen-roshi did as well. It's a long haul. Know that. It's not a quick fix. It's not as Mitra-roshi was planning to do when he went to Japan, was get Kensho and run home. That's not how it is. But the process, particularly after we've reached a certain point, is immensely rewarding. We open our arms and embrace whatever appears within this landscape of the inner self and explore it, seeing through where we're attached. It is quite amazing. So I hope each of you will continue to profound levels. It is immensely worth it. And what else really can we do? Thank you for listening. We'll stop now and recite the 4 vows.